Maybe NAR is going nowhere, and the only way for agents of change to change it is to be involved maybe locally and or nationally. This is Byron Lazine and Nicole Wright, and you are tuned into episode 343 of The Real Word.
Word is up.
Nicole, I went up to my first ever NAR event last
Did they invite you?
I did not get a personal. You know what? I did get an invite,
But not from NAR.
not from NAR specifically, but somebody who's been involved in NAR for a long time.
Okay.
Maybe not a personal invite, but an encouragement. Gary Ashton's CEO, Deborah Beagle, invited me. I'm going to see Deborah this week in Nashville. Shout out to the Gary Ashton team. They were very kind to me. Gary, his wife, Amanda, and Deborah, in just kind of showing me. They've all been to NAR
Where was
before.
it? Was it in New York?
It was in Boston.
Boston, even better.
And,
Okay.
I got to see my friend Lisa Chinati, of course. And,
Figured. Yeah.
saw some I met a lot of people too that I had never met throughout the
Good.
industry. And so I think there was 11,000. I don't know if I'm making that number up, but I think I heard 11,000 people attended this thing. I mean, they take over multiple hotels, Nicole, in this Boston Seaport Convention Center area. The convention center, obviously. I mean, this is a massive event.
Well, and clearly people are still attending. It's not like anything is scaring anyone away from going.
So we have a whole bunch of headlines that came out of this. Yeah, people
Okay.
are not only attending. I'll give you one of the headlines right now. Not only
Are people getting like autographs and stuff too? Like, is it like that kind of event?
is it what?
Selfies, autographs, like autographs.
There's so many people, Nicole. I mean,
It's like an Herbalife thing, like we're all like handing out.
NAR is nothing like Herbalife. That might be another event. That might be like the brokerage events. We won't get into that. All right, so I've been highly critical of NAR. I'm going to give you my experience going
Can't wait.
there. How I think you should think about NAR moving forward.
Okay.
To your point, there was a lot of people there. One of the headlines coming out of this is NAR's membership has held steady throughout 2024. At the end of October, it continues to top 1.5 million. So the membership count is near all-time high. I think you and I both were like, hey, if the membership drops, it's going to take a couple of years to really work through. There was some thoughts that it would drop significantly this year. One of the reasons why it's impossible to drop in a meaningful way is the three-way agreement, the tie-in agreement. We're going to get to that in CEO Nykia Wright's comments coming out of this event. But let me just give you my experience.
Okay.
Massive event, multiple hotels, tons of people. Definitely demo is like the age demo is trending more experienced or more years in the business than less.
They're seasoned. Yes.
Okay. There is a very strong, I went to a lunch, I went to a dinner. Like when they do a lunch or a dinner, there's so many different associations within the association. There's so many meetings. I mean, it hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of meetings in this, in this 3-day conference.
And do you get to pick which meeting you're going to?
Yes. Some of them are an upcharge. Like you pay for an exhibit pass, you pay for the conference pass. There's all these different tickets of certain access points that you can choose or not choose. And then there's luncheons and meetings. And depending if you're involved in a certain designation, for example, or a whole different membership inside of the membership, it's
exhausting.
Luncheons and dinners. And Nicole, I saw some espresso martinis flowing at this luncheon at 1 in the afternoon. Yeah. I mean,
all right. Well, I mean, we are realtors, so
I'm like, Nicole would like this scene. Geez, there's bar for the whole
I wouldn't have
3 hour
made it to
lunch.
the I wouldn't have made it to the dinner meeting though.
I listen, I never drink at the lunch. I'm like, this is intense." But
Sounds it.
lots of awards, awards upon awards upon awards happening at all these different meetings and events and people getting sworn in, lots of swearing in.
Like
Um,
hands up and like Bibles and
yeah,
stuff?
yeah, I like the
Okay,
hand up, not the Bible, but yeah, definitely the hand up.
okay.
Um, there so if you've never been to one, I'm just kind of breaking it down a little bit, okay?
No, I love this.
And when you look at the scale of everything, I mean, when you look at how big the board of directors is, we've talked about this in the past. I mean, you're like, wow, this is bigger than government. I mean, right now, one of the big conversations coming out of the election is like, what is the reduction in government that this new administration is promising? What is it going to look like? How deep can it go? Is like Elon Musk the right guy to be involved in some of this stuff? He's done, big reductions at places like Twitter, then transforming it into X. He reduced 80% of the workforce, and that particular social app has only grown and been, they've been just as productive in terms of the output of work with 20% of the employees. So can you pull that off in government? You got to start thinking along those lines. Maybe you don't with NAR with their numbers being at an all-time high. Maybe they're not going to think about making adjustments. But to me, when I look at the scale of it, it is like beluga whale excess. And I say this I know I've been critical of NAR, and I am working to understand the beast,
Yeah.
the beluga beast a little closer. I wanna
Maybe the next you'll have your hand up.
Who knows where that could lead? Maybe NAR is going nowhere, and the only way for agents of change to change it is to be involved maybe locally and or nationally. And so I'm exploring, hey, NAR is such a beast, such a beluga, such a potentially blob at this point that
Blob.
it might not go anywhere. And or maybe there is a reduction in numbers, but it's not significant enough for the association to lose their standing.
It seems like everybody was still, like, more excited and less concerned, like, especially if they're
Listen, the
clapping hands, like, everyone's still, like and then, martining at lunch.
oh,
It's like
the
as
attendees are,
usual.
if this is a core 11,000, call it, that attended, they are very passionate about NAR, and we have covered NAR does a lot of good things. The
Right.
advocacy,
Yep.
for example, being among the top of the list. NAR, you go back in history, had a big hand in this being the only country that has the 30-year fixed mortgage as the best tool for home buying that buyers in the world have. So NAR in the past has done a lot of good things. There's an important We went over the lobbying numbers here recently, and certainly one of the biggest lobbyists in the country, which you can argue, maybe we shouldn't have as many lobbyists, but it does impact, rules and laws around home buying. What you also get on the other side of that, Nicole, is a little bit of an echo chamber
Mhm.
where the criticism or the feedback of the direction that NAR is heading doesn't necessarily seep in to that core group that is very much an advocate of what NAR is doing. I'll give you an example without using the name. I met an NAR employee in the lobby of one of the hotels. She was very nice. I enjoyed her greatly.
Did you go up to her? Did she go up to you, or it
There was
was
a
just
there was a group
a
of us.
group?
She knew somebody over there. She came over.
Okay.
I got the introduction. I thought she
Okay.
was very pleasant, very smart. She has I don't want to give up her name
Too
or her
much.
position,
Yep.
but she has
I get
some
it.
role in handling or at least knowing the back end data of the webinars that NAR hosts. Okay. And so I said, hey, how many attendees are you guys getting on the NAR webinars? And with pride, she said, we're getting about 300 to 1,000 every time with
Out of
pride.
how many members?
And I just went over the members being at a near all-time high. We have 1.5 million members in NAR, and there was a sense of pride and excitement and glee that they were pulling 300, not 300,000, not 3,000, 300 to 1,000 folks, agents, members on a webinar. They have
Yeah,
the biggest microphone and the biggest opportunity to impact agents of anybody in the industry. And they're pulling those numbers. To me, it was sad. And I said, that is almost embarrassing to say. I feel
did you
uncomfortable.
you said that to her?
I did. I said, I feel
What's
uncomfortable
the
hearing
reaction?
the number. I said, in like 48 hours, we can whip up a couple thousand, just a media company that's speaking and producing content that is more
Well, because
relevant
you're
today.
well, relevance, that's the key word
Well, so
there.
and
Yeah,
I think and this is where I'm like, I mean, man, if NAR, if the association's gonna be around, maybe we can help. Maybe there's an opportunity to help because there is a messaging landscape that is changing dramatically. There is a media landscape that is changing dramatically right now. And for those numbers to be there, there is a disconnect in the messaging. And really, I mean, what I said to her exactly was this highlights the echo chamber that is happening. If we think those numbers are good, and we're not looking for the relevance in messaging in today's climate, then we just keep speaking into the same, echo chamber. Same 300,
right.
1,000 people are signing up, and these numbers, the whole number game is a problem. Okay. The 1.5 million members, how many of them, because of the marginal agent with the danger report 10 years ago, or, I talked about this on knowledge. We had Jack Miller from Knowledge Brokers. You and I talked about the opportunity report, the new report. We broke that down
Yep.
as well here and on Knowledge Brokers. But the danger report highlighted the marginal agent. Now, with the opportunity report, the T360 came out. It's like, hey, there needs to be a higher standard of agent. But when you collect bodies, 1.5 million, we know 50% of agents in every MLS do zero transactions. When we collect bodies and we don't have the standard, it becomes about supporting the beluga, the blob, so to speak. You get rid of 750,000 NAR members if they evaporated overnight because there was a higher standard of, agents having to adhere to and what have you. What I saw in Boston, the size of that, the scale of that reduces dramatically. Okay.
Oh, I'm
It,
sure.
it was eye-opening to see. And so this leads us to here are some of the headlines, Nicole. Let me break down some of the
Okay.
headlines that came out of the past week. Um,
Things that you learned that you didn't know or just things that they're talking
no, these are
about?
things that are in the conversation, but these were some of the major headlines from NAR Next. Um, I was there on Friday. We're recording this on Tuesday. So just the last few days, here are the headlines that have captured attention.
Okay.
Compass CEO Robert Revkin says Zillow will be the national MLS. So he took his time to go to NAR Next and really hammer on doing away with clear cooperation policy. He wants that gone. He's stoking the fears of Zillow being the national MLS, and that was a headline that was out there. One of the headlines that just came out yesterday from Real Estate News was NAR seeking outside help. I heard a rumor similar to this when I was there. I actually texted it to somebody to say, hey, can you validate this? The rumor I heard was that legal what was getting, we know that legal Katie Johnson stepped down a few weeks ago, NAR, but the legal inside counsel was going to be removed. Uh, that hasn't happened. And it looks like maybe that was a confused rumor because what actually is happening is NAR is seeking outside help, outside attorney counsel here to get ahead of other antitrust issues. Okay. That's a headline that comes out. MLSs will have to reinvent themselves. This is from a panel discussion. What's the future of MLS look like? Are they going to be able to show value to their subscribers without having the compensation on the MLS? So that's a discussion that was happening. Also, NAR approves the board budget. They approve a culture transformation plan. These NAR membership numbers being near all-time high. And then Nykia Wright made headlines by saying she supports, or she signals rather support, this is an Inman headline, for the three-way agreement, even though there's been realtor pushback on that, the tie-in agreement. Of course, if I need access to the MLS and I have to have the local board, and I have to have local board because I have to have NAR, then of course those 1.5 million numbers stay inflated. We've beaten that almost to death, have we not, Nicole? I mean, that
We
is
have done
we
that.
have done that. All right. So out of all those headlines, which one sticks out to you? Is it the transformation plan that they have passed? Is it the Revkin comments? Is it the MLS comments? If you have the three-way tying agreement, and that is a rule, your numbers are going to be inflated. Is it the all-time high numbers? What is sticking out to you as maybe the most surprising or the most important conversation we could have?
I don't know that any of them are surprising. I'm surprised that the CEO of Compass went up there and sort of declared that in front of, like, did he, like, stand up in front of all these people and say that Zillow is, like,
Yeah, I mean, well, he's been standing up in more rooms than this and
yeah.
saying that he believes the clear cooperation policy should be removed. He's tried to rally others in his cause. The session that he was involved in was called "The Future of the MLS," and so he made, definitely capturing headlines
I'd
here.
like to think that that was probably one of the most well-attended, you know, lunches or meetings or whatever it was called.
Yeah,
That would
with
be something that I would be extremely interested in hearing about.
yeah, with Revkin being on the panel, with the future of the MLS being
Yeah.
somewhat in question. I think the MLS is in a pretty strong position, but
No, I know, but again, I mean, things can change rather quickly
I'm
on the
learning
too.
I'm in the minority of saying, "Hey, MLSs have the power." I've just heard Zillow talk about the MLSs in a way that they say we can't lose the MLSs. And so when you hear what is now, I mean, Zillow
Well,
stock the last week
yeah.
has exploded, by the way, after their earnings report. They're now worth 17 billion. It was half of that just earlier this year. They're
Did you
exponentially.
grab any more, stocks before that happened?
I still had a bunch that was down below 50. I sold some of it off as it hit 75 here. I think it's 75 today. So Zillow stock doing well. But so there's 540 MLSs. And so Revkin's point is at some point there will be a national MLS. He made the point that if you were going to build an MLS today, say it's like no MLSs exist, would you build 548 or would you build one national one? He believes it would be one national one. Okay. And so he points out that he congratulated Zillow on their latest earning report, noted that the company was now worth the 17 billion. He said, "This is what's happened to the industry under this watch, under these current conditions." And he says that Zillow's brilliant strategy has placed the company's success at the feet of organized real estate. Okay. So he says they meaning Zillow, through your rules, meaning NAR local MLS rules, to become a broker in every state without having office space, without having agents. They were able to get access to all the listings and then charge referral fees on all the listings. It's a great business model, and those are rules that you've created, so they are the winner. And it's hard to poke holes in that argument that Zillow, there's a famous Gary V quote from years ago where he says, "Guys, it's over. Zillow has already won the attention of the consumer, the brand that they've built." And you can argue that there's, still, the number two competitor to that space, realtor.com, could have had that stance because they have the name realtor.com. They had the
Right.
position before. and they still have a real big share of the traffic, and they have stickiness, and people really want to use that website. But what Zillow did with the Zestimate was they captured the minds and the attention of everybody, and it's so hard. Everybody meaning homeowners and home buyers. It's so hard now for that to just go away, right? Like,
Right.
I was having a conversation with somebody at NAR Next, and they're like, I think it was actually Amanda, Gary's wife, from the Ashton team there. Which, if you don't know Gary Ashton team, Nashville #1 team worldwide for Remax. So, anyways, where sometimes, and Nicole, this has probably happened to you, where you get a consumer that maybe has gone through Zillow. She's like, "Hey, I've had clients, they're a client of mine. They went through Zillow and they scheduled something, and then they tell her after the fact, and it's like, I didn't want to waste your time. I didn't want to.
Always.
I don't want to bother you.
Yeah, I never wanna bother you. You're so busy. I know you're so busy.
Well, you not wanting to bother me just cost me 40%." So, like, or sometimes if you have pre-documented,
Right.
conversations and documented relationship, you can unwind that, but sometimes not the case, right? And so
Not the case.
consumers don't realize that there's a 40% referral fee for saving somebody who you're going to work with, anybody, time.
Time.
In some situations, obviously there's an open negotiation that it takes place, and buyer agency really means nothing, because all buyer agent contracts can now be canceled with basically being put in writing. That's the new norm. That's a whole nother topic. Um, but Revkin made this strong stance. There was a panelist as well from Zillow, Errol Samuelson, the chief industry development officer, and he didn't respond to Revkin's comments, even though he was on the panel. So, I'm just reading that. I wasn't in the room. Would have loved to have seen, his body language. I mean, if he didn't respond, why didn't somebody push him to, hey, what's your response here? I mean, if I was sitting there moderating that panel, I'd be like, Errol, what's your response? Like, what do you got? What do you think about that?
That's why we're all here.
Would you ever go national MLS? Do you think there should be 548? Do you think there should be one? And at least, get some thoughts out of that.
Did you see our buddy, was ROB there?
I don't know if Notorious ROP was there. Listen, I was there for 24 hours, and I bought an exhibit pass and didn't even go into the exhibit hall. So shame on me.
Shame on you.
I mean, I felt like I was in luncheons and dinners and
For in one day.
lobby meetings the entire
9
time.
lunches, yeah.
A lot of
Mhm.
lobby meetings. Um, the NAR seeking outside counsel, basically, to me, that's a non-story. They obviously, inside counsel didn't really do that
Do
great
their
of a
job?
yeah, didn't do that great of a job.
Yeah.
MLS is having to reinvent themselves. I don't know if they need a total reinvention, but they do need to find ways to bring value to customers. And that value isn't necessarily choosing to, buy a paywalled news source where your members don't even know their login, like Nicole has through our local MLS board, you know, access
Inman?
to Inman, and she doesn't even know her
I don't have
passwords.
access to Inman.
So, your membership is paying for that. You don't even know how to get your password, and how many actually use that? How about a free click to new? Maybe BAM needs to provide a free option. News and podcasts and all these things have changed dramatically, the game now, and maybe that needs to take place. Maybe there needs to be feed to nowbam.com where there's no paywall. I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking out loud. MLS is like, that could be a splashy announcement, a relevant announcement. So MLSs, and then the tools that you use, some of the tools that were brought up on this panel is like I know reverse prospecting exists in the MLS, but actually
Yeah,
how many buyers are shopping in that price range? Things like that you
right.
could bring those data and analytics to a seller, to a buyer, that really uncovers what's going on in the market. Everybody wants this transparency around seeing everything. I got to sit with the founders of Final Offer, and the way that they're really changing the game on seeing offers is an interesting approach. It's in this.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, I think we're seeing final offer on our MLS, well, brokerages using it quite a bit
Yeah.
now,
I mean,
or at
to the
least starting to.
sellers love it.
I
And then,
bet.
but the problem, the friction is buyer agents, anytime
Buyers
you
hate it.
create something new, but there
Yeah.
are buyer agents that have learned how to use this to their advantage and are winning more offers for their clients. They're not being afraid of, the software component and the options now that sellers have at their fingertips to use.
That
Um,
would be an interesting training.
yeah, I mean, I got to sit down with those
Hmm.
guys. That was the dinner the night I came in. They were really smart people. They're outside the industry, by the way. They've built software that has changed the game in, in a finance solution, and they're serious people, and I think that they're on the cutting edge
Onto
of
something.
what
Yeah,
is happening. You know, I
for sure.
if I'm
At
negotiating
least right now.
at the very least, even if I don't maybe want the solution that final offer has, I think a lot of people will. A lot of sellers that see it like it, from what I'm hearing. Okay, but no matter what is the listing agent, I want to see all the offers in one place. I don't want you emailing me 5 different emails. That is
Yeah.
insane. That is antiquated.
Well, God forbid one goes into the trash or into junk. I mean, there's so many variables with
I
that.
want everything in one place. I want to see it side by side. It's why we talk about Mosaic so much. It's why we've implemented it into our business to be able to provide this solution. There needs to be full transparency. If I order an Uber and I can't see what turn he's making, I go crazy. Okay, and this is just a ride 5 minutes down the road.
Mm,
If I can't see what's going on with my deal, it's my house, not yours. If I can't see the
right,
back end of what's going on, what you're working on, if I'm not in the loop, if I don't know next step, we are decades behind. And so we got to catch
right.
up to that in a hurry. That needs to be at the top of your list going into 2025 if it's not already. And the MLSs, if there's going to remain 500 plus, I think a lot of them are going to um, you know, merge together, or, there's going to be consolidation there. The MLSs that stick around have got to provide some of that solution for their members. Um, I'll go to just finish with Nykia Wright's comments here
Yep.
about these are quotes out of this Inman piece about this tie-in agreement, three-way agreement. A lot of agents have been saying, once my local board lifts the restriction of like, I don't need the local board to get MLS or NAR, I'm going to be out. She is quoted as saying, "Some of you have heard rumblings of the challenging of the three-way agreement. Some of you have heard rumblings of the challenging of the three-way agreement." She says, "Well, we are here to make sure that those rumblings subside because it is our duty to make sure that people understand what happens at the local level, the state level, and the national level, and really make sure that people understand that there isn't a cannibalization of services, but it really is working together to make things work." So she is saying, this three-way agreement is good for you. We want to keep it. Okay, I just paraphrased what her quote was, but essentially, to me, that's what I get out of this. And I think the conversation needs to go much deeper than that. Okay. Listen, NAR exists with 1.5 million members very healthily, with the healthily, I don't know if it's a word, but they make a lot of money doing that. It's a
Right.
nonprofit, but there's a lot of money to keep that beluga excess that I mentioned earlier in the pod afloat. Do whales float or they sink? What do they do? They must float. They're at the top of the water, right?
Well, I mean, they swim.
They swim. I'm
Yeah.
gonna start studying the whales. Okay.
Yeah, you've been talking about them today.
Yeah, I like the analogy there. But in order to keep that, the tie-in agreement is actually the strongest stance for keeping that tie-in, that three-way agreement. There's freedom of choice, think about, the 50% of agents that don't do a deal, Nicole. If they had freedom of choice on what they're going to be, you know, paying for to have MLS access, how many pay everything just because they want to keep their license? And that's bad for the industry. Now you're keeping agents in there that aren't equipped with the training, aren't equipped with,
Right.
to Nikia's point, like, yeah, you should know what's going on locally. You should know what's going on state, and you should know what's going on nationally. Nikia, this is why we do the hot sheet every single day, the macro and the micro. You should be an expert in all of that. How can you tell
Right.
me that, 50% of members who don't do a deal every year are keeping up on these things, okay, are educated, are able to articulate that to the consumer? And so the deeper conversation should be the standard needs to go up. And Nicole, what would you pay if the standard was higher? What would you pay? Would you pay if you were to cut out
What would I
if
pay?
you were to cut out 60% of agents and just the top is going to be left? Would you pay double, triple what you're paying now in dues or in licensing for the reduction of the agents that kind of pull the industry down? Would that be of value to you if the standard was higher, or do you kind of like things where they are? No answer is bad answer. What's your perspective on that?
It's actually kind of funny because I got my hair cut yesterday, and I was talking to
I
my
did too.
hairdresser. What?
I got my haircut
A little
yesterday.
cut, a little cut. Anyway, and we were talking about college and schools, and she obviously went to hairdressing school and cost her like $10,000, and I'm like, "That's funny, it only cost me like $300." So I would pay I'm fine paying more. I'm fine paying more, um, if it would if it would get rid of yeah,
If the
I'd
standard
pay more.
was higher, if the trade-off was higher, if the education was
Yeah.
higher, something like
I
that.
mean, hell, man. I mean, I would do continuing it every year, or I'm not. I mean, I got my broker's license, so I don't even mind going back into the classroom if that's sort of what it would take, instead of doing it on, virtually, um, or even getting like an associate's degree. Like I'm not against any of it. I'm not against any of it. I don't. I think there's never a bad time to learn.
And you don't have much of the conversation going there. Now, they did come out to
A lot of people are like, "Oh, I'll do it on the weekends or in between this job," and like there's not enough skin in the
here
game.
are the approved recommendations to the board. They're going to create an accountability awareness campaign to ensure members, association executives, staff understand how to access NAR policies. So they're creating a campaign. Listen, most of their campaigns I have a big issue with. Um, if we're talking about marketing campaigns. Anyway, number two, that each NAR policy related conduct establish a transparent disciplinary framework for infractions. NAR develop an annually required training to reinforce expectations and accountability policies that all NAR volunteers and staff annually recommit to, and understanding and adhering to all policies and procedures related to accountability. Number four, that the extended leadership team, executive committee, vice presidents, all these people, complete an anti-retaliation training annually to clearly define NAR's anti-retaliation policy. That NAR regularly administer culture and accountability surveys to NAR volunteers. That anti-retaliate, like, first of all, there should be a more open conversation. Okay. What some people in NAR think is retaliatory is just like having a conversation. Stop saying keep the conversation inside. I have a real issue with that. That is not the way of the world. If you keep speaking into an echo chamber, you're going to lose and lose and lose. It's why there was an election lost last week, speaking into an election chamber, not getting on enough of those podcasts. The NAR to establish culture and accountability bodies for NAR volunteers and staff. The NAR enhance online resources for state and local associations to support compliance and accountability. The NAR established a unified set of values for NAR volunteers and staff. Leadership summit and camp focus more on direct leadership training and building critical skills. Chairs and vice chairs of NAR committees and staff leaders to complete communication skills training. The elimination of one-year presidential initiatives. Now we'll have Kevin Sears a 2-year. I do think that was a good move. These 1-year what can you get done in 1 year? You go around and
Right.
meet everybody for 9 months and then you're out. So I think that that is probably a good thing. Doing the 2 year. Nothing in there though is about like jacking up the, you know, state and national requirements to become an agent so that the professionalism is just going up in the right direction. It's a lot of still, it seems like a lot of protecting of the NAR blob.
Of course.
I do encourage you though. I don't think NAR is going anywhere. That was apparent there. I mean, 11,000, they took over that section of Boston. And so start
Well,
to,
must have been a lot of lanyards walking around,
there
huh?
was a lot of lanyards.
A
They're probably
lot of
still sweeping them
lanyards.
up on the sidewalks in the
I bet they
Seaport.
are. Come up with something new than a lanyard, but
Coming, into 25, think about maybe I'm thinking about I'll just say you don't have to do it. You can be frustrated. I've been frustrated. I'm thinking about ways to understand it more.
yeah, you've been very open-minded lately. It's quite
I'm
shocking. Like, you wanted to go to an event? I'm like, "They're making charcuterie boards. You don't wanna go to that
I'm
event."
very open-minded about taking a deeper look at this, and maybe the only way to make the change that we need is to influence from the inside. There's a lot of bureaucracy to fight through taking that approach, but there right now is not a path towards a new association. Maybe fixing the one that is there is the only path. It'll be really difficult to break this thing up. That has become clear to me. So
Good. I'm glad you went.
I'm glad I went too. That's let us know what you think. Have you ever been to an NAR event? I mean, I think everybody's probably been to one of their local board events and state, we've all been to one of those, but have you ever been to a national one? Were you in Boston? What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on some of the headlines that came out of it? And let us know in the comments. Love to learn from what everybody is thinking down below. Nicole, I think we'll be on. We'll still have a pod next week before I go away. So I'll see you.
I hope so.
Yeah, I think so. See you
It'll
next
be
week.
like yeah. Yeah, and then nothing for Thanksgiving,
Maybe
right?
we might
Thanksgiving
do
we're
Thanksgiving.
off?
We might do one for Thanksgiving week too. Maybe not. Usually we take
Hmm,
Thanksgiving week off. Probably will, but
we'll see.
we'll see.
Maybe something will happen.
Appreciate you guys. Hit the thumbs up if you made it this far. Let us know what you thought in the comments, and we'll see you next time. Keep it real. August 17th approaching. It is more important than ever for agents to keep their clients, not just for the transaction, but for life. So I believe so much in what Reminder Media is doing. They're creating content that allows you to stay in front of your sphere of influence, the clients that you've transacted with in the past, so that they think of you first when they have a referral, when they have another transaction. A lot of people send a just sold or a just closed realtor talk mail. Reminder Media supports agents like Nicole, my co-host on The Real Word, in building out an authentic magazine where you can advertise your own properties. Here's an example of our award-winning luxury new development that we have in Connecticut. Put it right on the back and put in a whole bunch of relevant information. You can build out the content inside of your magazine and send it to maybe people you're following up with to get a listing, or people who are in your database right now who know you but might just forget about you because you're mixing in with all the postcards from the other agents. Reminder Media keeps you top of mind with the people that you want as clients for life. That's why we believe in so much of how they're helping agents just like you stand out. Go to remindermedia.com/BAM sample. Remindermedia.com/BAM sample today to get your sample and start reminding your clients exactly who you are today. At BAMX, we listen to what real estate professionals want and need. That's why our platform is filled with sought-after courses, content, and tactical assets for your business. And that's why we launched BAMX in a box with templates and scripts done for you, delivered each Friday. The best part? It's not coming from panel pontificators who bought their followers and don't sell any real estate. It's coming from top agents, team leaders, and content creators in the industry. It's education that actually shows you how to do what you need in today's market. And now it includes editable templates and scripts so you can easily deliver that knowledge to your database. Every day, we continue to add more content into BAMX, into our private Facebook community, content that works, content that our members have exclusive access to daily. So do not wait any longer. Use code REALWORD and join the thousands of agents taking their business to the next level today. Code REALWORD for 10% off. I'll see you in BAMX.